Michelle would hide in her room. Okay. So thoughts, lots of thoughts, lots and lots of thoughts. So, first thing is, I think that one of the biggest things that I think is going to shift in our industry is that it's not just about what you're getting paid, but how you're getting paid. And so what I mean by that is like, I think that for so long, the only thing that has seemed like mattered in our space is like what you're making. And I think that it's really starting to shift to how are you making it, right? Like, is it in an ethical way? Are you delivering on what you say you're going to deliver? Are the people that go through your programs having good experiences? Like, for me, when I think about it, it doesn't just matter what you're making, but how you're making it. I think of partnership model for me personally, right? Of being like, that feels really, really grounded in integrity to me, because the way I'm making money is what my clients are. And like, you know, there's a way where that feels really true and beautiful, but there could be like a million versions of that. Although I do feel like the partnership, you know, model is getting used so much more in our industry, which I think is awesome. I am actually going to do a free masterclass on that, I think, in the new year. If you're interested in that, let me know. I would love to get a gauge on that a little bit, but I think I'm going to do a free masterclass and just like dive very deep into like all things partnership in the new year, just so if anyone's interested in that, they can explore it. But again, that doesn't have to be the only way. I do think though that tide and conversation are turning quite a bit to like, are clients having good experiences in your program? Is the money you make kind of being backed up with great experiences? And I don't even just mean perfect results, because like none of us can guarantee that, right? But I do mean like someone felt held and cared for and seen and supported in your program. They felt like they got what you promised. They felt like you fully showed up and delivered. Like, this shouldn't be groundbreaking. But I do feel like that has just been so absent. The kind of accountability for that has been absent in our space. And I don't want to get into this whole conversation. I don't necessarily think like all of the ways we have public accountability are always the most, helpful. But I do think that there just isn't that in our industry as much. But I think the way that we can create accountability is where we decide to spend our money. And so I think just seeing that tide turn to really prioritizing those things. I also think that because, growth has just gotten harder and more expensive. Like, let's just call that what it is, right? Ads are more expensive than ever. And like, platforms just aren't like growth platforms in the way they used to be. Like Instagram, it's not like you're just going to get 10,000 followers overnight in the ways that you maybe could initially, which means I think that it's going to be more and more about curating a really warm audience that wants to buy from you again and again, and giving them really exceptional experiences that help them to buy from you again and again, because they're having, such a beautiful, experience in your program. So I think that's going to be part of it too. I think like the kind of like churn and burn kind of stuff of like, it sort of doesn't matter how well you're delivering, because you're kind of on to the next set of people over and over again. Like, I think that's totally going to shift this year. I think it's going to be a lot more about like long-term client value and things like that. Right. I also think that not only is it not just about how much you're getting paid, but how you're getting paid. I think it's also not about just how much money you make, but how you're making it. So I think those sound like similar things, but one I would think about in terms of like how your clients and audience are experiencing it. And another one I would think about in terms of how you're experiencing it, right? So I feel like the only thing that has kind of mattered in our industry for a long time is like what revenue number you're able to share. And I feel like people are just getting so over that. And I don't think we should stop sharing numbers, but I think that we have to share more context. And I think our audience is so interested in that. I'm so curious what you guys think about that. But, of all those applications I got, nobody was like, I'm interested in hiring you because you make X amount of money. Like, I think in many ways, that's like one of the last reasons that people are interested in hiring me. And so I think that, that's just worth saying, is that I think that we're moving away from a time where that's the only thing that mattered. And it's more like, are you making an amount that feels good to you? And are you doing it in a way that feels good to you? I think that that is such an important conversation. Elisa said on day one of the MSE marathon, you talk about giving clients the wow factor. And this really resonated with me. And it feels so freaking great to consistently think about how I can deliver the wow factor to my clients. I love that. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Mandy. Hey, Netta, thank you for being here. But yes, totally that. Like, I feel like it's just so interesting to me how far we've gotten away from some of that as an industry, and how much even some of that gets frowned upon. Like, it's almost like if you're like trying too hard with your clients or something, that's a bad thing, and you need so many more boundaries. And like, of course, there can be a time where we need to have like boundaries in place. Like, I'm all for that. But I do think that sometimes we've taken it so far where it's like, it just matters if I got paid for the program. It doesn't matter how I deliver it. It doesn't matter if I just kind of like give the equivalent of like a free training and my paid stuff. Like, I just think there are going to be a lot of lines there where people are going to start having a higher expectation of what we deliver. And I think that, that will be a good thing. So anyway, then how you make the money. Like, I think that that's a conversation we're going to start seeing more of too, is it's not like, look, I make this much and it kind of doesn't matter how the sausage is made. Like, I think it's going to start mattering how the sausage is made, right? Meaning, like, I think people are going to be looking to hire mentors who they feel aligned to the way they're operating and doing things, versus they just feel excited about the income level that they're seeing them reach. Like I was saying, in all those applications we received, not one person was like, well, you're at the $1 million mark and I want to hire you because I want to get there. Like, that was so not the vibe in any way, shape, or form. It was interesting, actually. There was like, I think of the night, I actually almost counted this and I stopped, but I think I know have a rough estimate of the number. But of the 93 applications we got, I think about like 88 of them said one specific word about why they were interested in hiring me. And like, this is a subset. This does not have to be why they're interested in hiring you. But my point in saying that is like, none of them. Actually, I'm so curious, you guys, what do you think the word was? There was one word. No offense in any way, shape, or form of any of your guesses, but there was one word that like 88 people said. And I want to share it with you because I think it's so helpful and maybe healing for some of us to hear what this was. Belinda said, I think we've almost villainized people who actually work more than 4 hours a day, exaggerating, of course. I agree with that. I have a lot to say about that. Do you think that's ever been the vibe with your clients? No, I don't think so. But I do think that I have in the past had the vibe of like, oh, you had these clients get to this number. And so like, I want to hire you for the same reason. And I think to a certain extent, that's valid in the sense of like, hey, you're getting these people these results, so it kind of makes sense to hire you. But I feel like these applications were even less about that this time than ever, which is interesting. Oh, you guys, these are nice words. Thank you. No, so the word was grounded, which I thought was really interesting because I obviously like see that and believe that in myself. Like, that's something that I really like value and hold in high regard in terms of how I show up and operate. But I thought it was really an interesting, and again, this is 93. This is not our whole industry. And of course, this is the people I attract. So take it for what it's worth there. But I do feel like that tide is turning in our industry a bit, where like people are wanting that like grounded, supportive, like back to basics kind of business stuff, instead of that sort of like, almost like so like on another planet kind of thing. And like, not again, that any of this has to be wrong. And again, of course, these these are the people that are coming to me, but I feel like it's helpful for a lot of people to hear that like some people do really want to get back to that and back to like basics and like grounded business and like having kind of like, you know, 2 feet on the earth and not sort of like being like on a pedestal and being like, you know, like they want to learn from me because I'm perfect or because I have everything they want or whatever, right? So I think that that's just really important. Yes. Okay. So good to know. Um, enough with that. I just invested 100K in a coach to pay me 50K. Yes, I have a lot to say about that, y'all. I think that's so interesting, right? So anyway, I just thought that was like a helpful share is like, I think there is a craving to kind of just get back to some of those things that it feels like we swung a little bit away from, which leads me to an interesting conversation that I think is going to start to shift in our industry a little bit more too, where it's like, I feel like the desires in our industry have had to keep increasing because pricing has increased so dramatically. And so what I mean by that is like, I've talked about this a lot, but like when I first started in this industry, it was like super fucking huge to have like a 5 to 10K month. And then it was like everyone wanted 10K. Then it was like everyone had to be having 50K. Then it was like everyone had to be having 100K. And now it's like, I feel like every single person is like, you know, I want $1 million month. And like, I want to be careful with this conversation because I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with like having big goals, women wanting to make a lot of money. Like a lot of my clients have really, really big goals and I fully support that. But I think that we're coming back to a season of like checking in if that makes sense for you instead of kind of just doing it because the industry tells you that's what you should want. And like, you guys, half the reason the industry tells you that that's what you should want is because that's how the industry profits. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if your goal is $1 million, then yeah, maybe you're willing to invest 150K. But if your goal is 10K months, then like that doesn't make sense. Do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like we're going to get back to an interesting point where people are kind of getting more clear on like maybe like 10K a month is just the thing that's going to support them and their family. And like, can we make that right and cool and amazing if that's what someone's version of success looks like, instead of sort of this almost like underlying narrative that like if that's what you want and you stop there, something's wrong. But because I think that there's going to be more of an interesting swing back to that, I also think there's going to be some price adjustments in our space as well, because I do think that when I'm clear on what my goal is and what success looks like to me, then I'm going to invest in a way that matches that instead of, you know, believing that I should have this goal and then I have to invest so hugely at that level. Like, I really think that that's going to be something interesting to keep a watch on. I think prices have just gotten super, super crazy. And I think, you know, we might see a correction in that. And I don't want anyone to freak out and think like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to like make the amount of money I want to make. This is not like doomsday-ish. Like, I think this is a really positive thing. And I think we will still be able to charge beautiful premium rates and stuff like that. But I do think that what will be helpful is that the people that are like paying higher and higher rates will potentially be doing that because that truly is like aligned for them and their goals, and not just because everyone feels like they should be doing that. Because I think a lot of people just have completely overinvested themselves in this industry and are absolutely struggling because of it, because they never even got clear on what they actually wanted and then invested in a way that was aligned to that goal. And I feel like that is going to start to shift where it just doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, agree about pricing. Yeah, 100K a day. Exactly. Right. Thank you, Jana. Yeah, it has. It's just all gotten a little crazy. And it, you know, again, I think we have to temper that with like, by all means, charge what feels good to you and stuff like that. But I do think as an industry, like there has been a shift, and I think we're going to start to see a more normalized shift. I'm not huge on like talking about recession economy stuff, although I think that also we can't be like avoiding that conversation completely either. I think that there's like a really neutral middle ground to be at. And I think that, you know, as things like that shift on the greater scale, people are going to be looking at their investments in a different way. And I do think that we're going to see that in the upcoming year. And I think that that could be actually really good for our industry and really good for us as a whole in many ways. So I think like revisiting pricing structures is something interesting. I've also been talking to a lot of clients about this. Yes, higher rates will be grounded in actual skills and experiences. Yes, 100%, which, leads me to kind of like another two-parter prediction here, which is that I think that we will start to see a shift away from like hiring someone just because we like their life, or maybe just because of like their earnings, but because I think we'll see that shift back to like, because they truly help us solve the problem we need to solve to move forward, right? So I feel like what has happened so much in our industry is that it's almost like we've just been making hiring decisions based on like whose life we're kind of resonating with on Instagram, or, that kind of thing. And I don't think that that has to be like totally bad. And I wouldn't say like people should stop sharing that in any real way. I just think that we've stopped being discerning buyers in our industry, honestly. I think we've just lost it's almost like we've pedestaled all the like, people making a lot of money, and we've stopped realizing that they work for us. Like I tell my clients that all the time. I'm like, I work for you. Like that's the power dynamic here, is that I work for you. Obviously at coach mentor, there is a slightly different dynamic to play with in the container, but the true power dynamic is I work for you, right? And I feel like we've just stopped thinking like that as buyers. And it is my hope that that shifts back, and that a lot of people take their power back a lot more in the coming year and realize that like everyone that you're hiring works for you. And like, you get to be a discerning buyer in that process. It almost has felt like we pedestal people so much, and then like they put out an offer and we just have to buy, and it has to be a thing. And it's like, it gets so weird and convoluted, I think. And I believe we can get back to this place where like, I'm hiring you because I have this specific problem and you help me solve it. Like that really empowered version, you know what I mean? Just like you would at any other service in your life, you know what I mean? Like we moved, and we have hired a team to like care for our yard and lawn. And it's like, I'm hiring them because they have great reviews, and because they solve the problem that I have, and like effectively they work for me. Like that's the exchange, you know what I mean? And I think like when someone's hiring a coach, I think that exchange should be similar. And I think we're kind of going to start getting back to that, because I feel like we're realizing that we're allowed to be discerning buyers. And I hopefully will want to see that narrative continue. Also revisiting messaging to reflect that intentional decision making. Yeah, I have a lot to say about messaging. Oh, I love that. That's awesome, Lisa. Jenna said, I've been waiting for years from the industry, or for the shift from I made X amount of money, so invest in me now, to actual skills this person possesses, not related to how much they've earned. Yes, totally. I do think that's coming. Like, listen, will it be next month? I don't know, but I do really feel like that like shift is beginning to happen. Are people always in some regards going to just be like, oh, someone made this amount of money, I'm going to pay them? 100%. Like, I think our lizard brains are always going to go there to an extent, but I think there's going to be more nuance to that conversation coming up for sure. And it's also going to like lead us to having to kind of know, and again, be discerning buyers about like, what is my problem and what investment makes sense? Like that is literally one of the reasons I am so obsessed with Dateable, and decided to start that with Jen at a time that made no sense for me to start that with Jen, because I really think that like data is the thing that can help you truly see like what is working for you and what's not, and then to make investments based on that, versus to just like randomly like haphazardly throw spaghetti at the wall. But I think that you want to be looking at your next investments and your next purchases from that discernment of, I am the buyer, this person is going to work for me. Do they solve the problem I have, and am I clear on that? Right. I really feel like that's going to be an incredible shift, which also leads me to the second piece of that prediction, which is that I think having a clear and unique selling point is going to be more important than it's been in a while. I really feel like, you know, we've gotten kind of far away from that. It's almost like we've gotten to a point where like the selling point is like just because you like me or because you want to hang out with me or because you want to be in my energy. And like, I don't think any of that's terrible per se, in the sense that I do think you should feel a huge resonance with the person you're working with, especially if it's going to be a one-on-one coach. But I do think that that idea of like, I don't have to have a clear problem I solve for you because you just like want to hang out with me or whatever is going to shift. And I think that like our industry is just getting more and more saturated. Like, I think that everyone thinks of that as such a bad thing. And I think that it's not. Like, best case scenario is the coaching industry keeps growing. Like, for all of us, that is by far the best case scenario. But there are trade-offs to that. And some of the trade-offs are like, our messaging has to be more on point. We have to be more clear on how we solve a problem for someone. We have to be really clear what that problem is. And I think that messaging component is going to be absolutely crucial coming up. Like, even with some of my clients who have much bigger brands, we've like been going back to basics on kind of being like, so like, let's get super locked in on the message. What's the exact message? What's the exact thought leadership? Because I think that, again, if people are being more discerning buyers, I think that's really important. And I think also, again, in an industry that is getting so saturated, like having something that helps you show someone why they need to work with you is really important. And I don't mean that it has to be so unique that no one's talking about it. Like, don't feel like all of this pressure there, but I think that it has to be just unique enough to you that like someone would know who to recommend you or how to, you know, make that connection to you in a way that's not just like, she's cool. Like, I like watching her. She has a good vibe. It's like, businesses are built to solve a problem, right? And so if someone can quickly articulate what problem you solve, that makes a big difference. If you can do that in terms of your marketing, that's going to make a big difference. And I feel like that's what we're getting back to. Excess liquidity hasn't even begun to come out of the capital markets in a meaningful way. We have had an unprecedented bull market for a very long time. It will drastically affect the online spaces, as well as people lose jobs, real estate markets soften, federal fund rates increase, and multiples contract. Planning for this is crucial. Yeah, listen, I think that we don't know how all of this will impact the coaching industry. Just like, you know, COVID kind of blew up coaching. And I think like it will be interesting to see how this rolls out. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, Hun's absolutely right that like the impact will be there regardless. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't necessarily, or the effect or whatever, it doesn't necessarily have to mean it's negative, but like realistically, things are going to shift. And I think that, you know, people are going to be intentional with how they're spending their money in a way that maybe they haven't before, where it felt like easier to just kind of go like, oh, this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing. I also think people are just realizing how over leveraged so many people are in our industry, like even people that are making a lot of money, right? And how unhelpful that has become. And so really feel like that shift of buyer discernment, marketing being more on point, messaging being more clear is going to be crucial. Hey, Dasha, no problem. Thank you for joining us. So messaging, I think, is going to take like a very front and center stage in some ways, both from the perspective of like the industry is saturated and from the perspective of like, you know, if it's not just money being the only thing anymore, what else is it? Do you know what I mean? And again, I don't think money is going to or shouldn't leave the conversation, but I do think that will turn. Jess is so very happy about messaging. Our resident copywriter here says, yay, messaging. But yeah, I mean, I'm so curious what some of you guys think about this too. Let me know, like, if you like agree, disagree, obviously totally fine. These are just predictions. Like, you are welcome to be like, I see something else. But yeah, I think like, I think this is all really good, right? I think another thing, I think two other things I want to say. Another thing is I think that we're just going to get back to business principles a little bit more. I feel like our industry always does these swings, right? But I feel like we've kind of just really moved away from like foundational business principles. It's so interesting to me, especially because I actually am quite a woo and mindset person. But to me, I just, based on the word I said earlier, like grounded, I feel like very much like live in this reality and see taking actions and principles and putting them into practice as an extension of our mindset and our, like energy. And so I feel like there's just going to be this like, let's get back to basic kind of approach of like what are just business principles that work? I feel like what has worked so well in our industry as of late is basically being like, I don't have to do any business principles. Look at me. Do you know what I'm saying? I feel like this is a major return in the coach. I feel like this is a major return in the coaching industry, but really interested to see how this impacts areas of coaching that are still budding. Yes, totally. Any tips for someone entering the coaching market this year? Yes, I will definitely talk about that, Kelsey. Let me actually grab that and like put this question over here just so I don't forget. But yes. Okay, I got it. So yes, I think like we're gonna end up getting back to business principles. Like, does anyone like get what I'm saying though? Where I feel like what's almost been like cool in the online industry for the last little bit is being like, I don't have to do any of these business principles almost, right? Like, it's so cool that I like don't have to like do calls or do follow-ups or market or this or that. And I think there is some ways to be like, it's so cool that I've like cultivated a community that's ready to be a quick buyer or whatever. But I think like there has just been such a shift where like anybody that's doing like foundational business principles, it's almost like seen as a negative thing. And I just think that like everybody's going to kind of start to be like, those are foundational principles because they work. And like, I'm just kind of wanting to get back to like what works and like what gets me more of what I want and what grows my business in a way that actually, feels good and is aligned. Hey, Lucy, thanks for being here. Janice said, I love that your predictions are always so grounded without jumping to shiny things in the industry. Thank you, Jan. I appreciate that. Lisa said, yes, I love to work on the foundations with my clients because those really matter. Yes, they really, really matter actually, right? Alessia said same, right? Like, I think that it doesn't mean that someone can't choose to do certain principles if they don't feel aligned. But I think this idea of like, it's only cool if I don't have to do these things, like I'm only getting the most attention if I say I don't have to do these things. I think it's just super harmful to everyone because, to answer Kelsey's question a little bit, I think everyone that's just coming into the coaching industry right now is honestly in such a difficult position, because this might be a tangent. I don't even know if I'm ready for this, but here we go. But because basically everything that's like super popular right now is kind of telling you like, don't use real principles, but they're not telling you what else to do. So it's like, you shouldn't have to do any of this. You shouldn't have to like get on a sales call. You shouldn't have to work too much. You shouldn't have to whatever, but there's no like, and this is what you should do instead. And so I feel like new people are just trapped a little bit in this like push pull of like, I'm supposed to have sales and I'm supposed to do this thing, but also I like not supposed to do this thing. And like, it's like, you're so screwed. And then on top of that, yes, tangent. Okay, I will give you the tangent because I have a lot to say on that. Lisa said you don't need sales calls, don't do a sales page, don't even let clients use their coaching calls because they just paid you 10K, they'll experience the transformation. Oh my God, I cannot with that. Yes, Elisa, I agree. Second guess this decision as she's talking. Welcome to my brain, Jeff. We think we're tired of living in extremes. I have to make $1 million or I'm only on the woo-woo space. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think we're tired of drama. I totally agree. I think it's basically like, listen, I want to invest in things that help me. I want to make like good money. I want to like get back to like what works and not necessarily caught up in all the other stuff. But anyway, the tangent is like new people are trapped, I think. Because it's like, you don't have to do any of these things, but like also what should you do? And if we're just being like really honest, what has been working in our industry the most for a long time is basically just like have a cool life and share it, right? And there's not anything inherently wrong with that. I think it just removes a lot of discernment, and I think that it's not really relevant. Like my life is not necessarily super relevant to the type of coach that I am and how I show up in that container, or my ability to teach or to create transformation or whatever. And so there's sort of like this recipe that works right now in terms of like how you can showcase your life and your world. And I think there is definitely a way to do that in integrity, but I also think that if you're newer, that's super that makes it so tough on you. It's like, okay, so I need to like over leverage myself and like showcase my life in a certain way and like travel in a certain way and do certain things to then be able to explode in this way. And I think that again, it's like, it feels like I'm not supposed to do any of these basic things, but I'm also supposed to have this like epic life and all this results right away. And like, where is the middle? And so my advice to somebody just starting out would be, don't try to grow super fast. And I mean, grow in terms of like audience. Like, I think that like get like a small audience that you're super, super, super engaged with. Know your unique messaging and selling point and get really, really clear and targeted on that. Solve one problem and solve it really, really well. Be willing to say the same thing over and over again. Be willing to have personal dialogue and personal conversations with people. Not think that, making one post is like the thing and that everyone should flock to you or whatever. And yeah, I feel like that is like what we're going to kind of swing back to a little bit of like, it's not about having, whatever 50,000 followers and like having to show every inch of your life. Although again, like there's nothing wrong with that if that resonates with you. Like I have some clients who like would do that for free. Like it's just how they operate and it's like so their nature. And I think that's so cool. And I'm obsessed with that. But I think the idea that that's the only way to do it is going to shift, right? Yeah, Deborah said, yeah. Can you define small audience? Like under 1,000, I would say I would call that. Hey, Katie. Rach says, and at the same time, the big coaches in the industry already have leveraged the dream life for so long that they themselves are no longer wowed by the money. So they lose the need to share the new bag. Yes, I completely agree with that, Rach. Lisa said, the thing that bothers me most with all of that is sharing your life is not skill-based. Like, how do I know that person is a good coach? Then last time I checked, coaching is a skill set. Yes, exactly. And I think we can just get to be more discerning about that. And I want to be so clear that it's not necessarily wrong. Like, unless you're lying about it, that's a whole other conversation. But like, I think it's amazing. Like share your life, share the bag, do all of those things. But I think that like why that becomes harmful is like when new people think that's the only way to success, right? But I think when they can see like the path to success is on like having a great problem you solve, having a great skill set that does that, and being willing to kind of go slow on that, being willing to treat people like people and connect with your people and to really lean into that, and it not being kind of about like the vanity metrics or like how your life looks on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that will be great news for our industry. I often think that if I had started now in our industry, like I might have just not done it. Like I might have just wanted to be like, because like that is not aligned for me to like share all of that. And so I think I might have felt really discouraged by that, or I might have felt pushed into things that didn't actually feel good for me. And so I think that like a lot of people are feeling like that. And I think that there's just going to be a lot more conversation about that and a lot more of a swing back to like real business principles, what actually works, how do we actually build relationships, how do we actually sell in a way that of course is integrity, but like is business. Like, I think we've just stopped treating business like a business. And I think we've just started treating it as a game of like, who can make the most money the fastest. And that's not necessarily business. Like, I'm not saying you don't have a business, but I'm just saying, like, I think that game is a different game. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like the difference between like, are you an investor in stock or are you a day trader? Like, those are kind of different games. And I think that that's an interesting conversation that's going to be coming up too. This is a different conversation potentially I want, but how do you discern what is good marketing versus I trust this person has the skills to help me? Great question, Lucy. I think that a lot of snaps on this. Wait, a lot of snaps on this. Oh, snaps. I get it. Thank you. So I think like, you know, you can be attracted to somebody because of their marketing, but I think that that shouldn't be the sole reason you buy, right? Like, I think that that might be what attracts you, but I think the discernment of buying is like, do I actually have the problem they solve? Do they solve it in a way that feels good and aligned to me? Like, i.e., maybe the problem you have is like, that you're not making more sales. But then when you realize that that person's system for making sales is like a bunch of cold DMs and that doesn't feel good to you, like, we get to practice discernment instead of being like, well, I guess I just have to do cold DMs then if that feels bad, you know? And then in terms of like the skill set, you know, I would really be thinking again, as a discerning buyer, like, what do you need to succeed? Like, what would you need in a course? Like, for example, for me, like if I was thinking about taking a course, something I know is like, I would probably rather listen than watch. So like, I might be like, hey, is there a way for me to be able to like listen to this on the go or whatever? And then that might be part of my decision because I know if I buy it and I can't, then maybe I won't do it. Like, I mean, that sounds so obvious, but I think that sometimes we just forget to be like, what do I need here? What is like a requirement for me of this? Same thing if you're going to hire a coach, like what's actually important to you? How do you actually like to be, or a one-on-one coach? How do you actually like to be supported? And are you clear enough on that so that you can know and vocalize that versus being like, I just have to buy because like I'm super attracted to her marketing. It's like, that's what might make me interested in buying. But now I have this whole list of things that I probably need to run through to decide if this is the thing, the space, the container for me. Right. So I feel like I could talk about that for a really long time, but I think that that's like a good starting point. Yeah, that game is how lottery people go bankrupt. Amen. Michelle said, love that. What do I need here? Question. And so many of us truly don't know because we're so overwhelmed with all the noise of everything else. Exactly. And I think if we start asking ourselves that more, we are going to be more discerning buyers, which is going to force the market to be more clear on what they're selling. You know, I think this idea of kind of just like, you know, you don't even have to have a sales page. You don't have to have anything, just like be you and people should buy. Like I'm not saying there's no situation in which I haven't had a client not have a sales page. There certainly is, but by and large, I think it's going to force the market to have to be really clear on what they're selling and what problem they solve because we're getting more clear and discerning as buyers, you know? So I think that's so important. And then the last one that I wanted to say, which is a slight deviation, but I think an important prediction that I like definitely see starting to happen is I think email is coming back in a big way. I feel like it, you know, for a while it was like email was dying like a slow and painful death, but I really see that coming back. Obviously, don't just like take my word for it. Check your email open rates and data and all of that kind of stuff. But with a lot of my clients, I'm really seeing that trend. And with myself, just seeing like open rates go up a lot more, click-through rates go up a lot more. I think what's my guess is that what's been happening is that because social content has gotten so short and so bite-sized and so like micro, you know, I mean, like right now I feel like what's the thing, like 6 to 7 second videos are like trending and performing the best. Like that's crazy. Like it's so bite-sized. And while I think there's something that our brains love about that quick consumption, I do think there's like still a deeper craving. And I think email is starting to like meet that need in a new way. That, you know, before it was almost like, I think when there was like when more like long form posts were super popular on social, it was almost like I didn't need the email as much because like all that was happening there. But now it's almost like as like more and more people are getting away from that, I think people are like, well, where can I get this deeper content and this deeper conversation? And so I think email is really kind of becoming that thing right now. Yeah, as Jess says, email is my love. So easy to write for. I'm so sick of trying to package everything as a reel. I know, right? Oh, you're so welcome, Elisa. Thank you for being part of it. I love it because I love writing more than being on video. Oh, email. Yes, totally. To echo what you said before, those 6 to 7 second videos or day in the life stuff is that showing life without really saying anything. Yeah. And like, you know, if that's like how we entice people, but then we get to like say the things in email, that's good. And they can like work together in our marketing ecosystem. But if that's all we're doing, then, you know, I think we're missing sort of that opportunity to like, again, go deeper with our people. And I just think that craving is there, you know. I think no matter how much we like that quick consumption on an app, like we are wired to crave more than that as humans. And so I think that that's why we're seeing that resurgence, and I'm hopeful that that will continue. Also, you know, side plug, look at your data and see if that's happening for you. Know how to look at your data, know how to track things. Yeah, Michelle said people love to binge my old blog posts, right? And Elisa said she recently saw something about blogs coming back. So like even that, like, are you looking at data? Do you know if that's true? Do you know what's happening for yours? Like, are you maybe getting like a huge uptick in email and now you need to pivot and like focus there? Are you like seeing blogs come back, and is that like helping your search? Searches a ton, like might you need to do that? So like all of this, I would say, you know, shameless plug is have data, have dashboards that tell you if this is true for you, because you can listen to me say this all day long. And obviously I have a pulse on the industry, but I don't have a pulse on your business specifically. I don't know what your people are doing specifically. And so data is the way you're going to know that. So everything I said, like filter through that lens, take it for what it's worth, but like see what's true in your business. Like maybe your people fucking hate email. I don't know. You know, like really know what's happening for you in your numbers too, but it could really help you figure out where to put your time. Like I have a note to myself, like over Christmas break, I want to start thinking about and sitting with like, what do I want to do in our emails a little bit differently? You know, what we do right now is like a kind of like a compilation of like, okay, here's like the live stream, the podcast, the client lessons. And I really like that because I feel like we're giving like more free value than most people are giving in like paid courses each week onto our email list, which I like. But I also think that we could probably take that deeper too. So anyway, like these are just things to think about. It's not like you have to implement them tomorrow. But because I'm seeing that uptick, it makes me go, okay, what else might I want to do here? And that's just something to think about, right? Yeah, Deborah said I haven't been paying much attention, but it's on my list to start leveraging in 2023. Yep, totally. Same. Same. Cool. So I think that's mostly it. I'm sure I have like a million other things I could say there, but I do just really see, you know how like in real estate, it's like, are you in a buyer's market or a seller's market kind of thing? I feel like coaching has been a seller's market for a while. And I feel like we're like, I think 2023 might be when it becomes more of a buyer's market, right? Where it's really about like the buyer and like what that looks like. On a side note, email feels really formal to me, so I don't really feel like I can build intimacy through them in the same way versus like you're messaging with someone. It feels like talking to a friend, but I could totally see how those vibes can work together differently. Yes, exactly. Can we bring blogging back, Jess? I am with you. Let's bring blogging back. I would love that. Would love that. Oh, there was one more little prediction that I won't spend a ton of time on because I feel like I've talked about it excessively. But personalization, personal support. Like that is it. Like when I say it's going to be a buyer's market, like I think we want to talk to the person we're buying from. We want them to feel like we're a person and not a number. We want that direct outreach. Like I think that is really shifting a lot too. Oh, yay. That's exciting, Elisa. We would love to have you in there. All the bloggers are like, it never went anywhere. I know, Michelle, they're like hanging on there waiting, right? Can you describe buyer's market a bit more? Yeah, like I think just more like when I'm thinking sellers markets, like what I've been saying of like, you can almost sell anything. And like, if you just have good marketing, people will buy it. And it like kind of doesn't matter how you deliver it. And they're just supposed to buy from you because you're awesome and not like because there's like value behind the wall and all of this stuff. And I think in a buyer's market, it's like, help me see how buying this makes sense. Help me see how this really serves me. Be willing to reach out to me, be willing to educate me on this, be willing to give me value in advance of this. Like, I'm going to practice a lot of discernment in what I want and need. And so the seller has to adjust to that as opposed to the other way around. So I think that that is what we're seeing more of. Let's start a movement. Oh my gosh, I love this, you guys. Let's discuss this further in IGTNs. It's a movement. Okay. We are bringing back blogging as apparently another prediction. So we'll add that one to the list. I love it. But yes, I think these are exciting changes. You know, I think that change always can feel tough no matter what, but I think that these are going to be very positive ones. I actually feel like there's like a very exciting outlook for the coaching industry in 2023, and I'm very, very happy to be part of it. And again, I think it's good that it's growing. I think it's good that it's changing, and it's just how can we kind of all get on board and move through that. So thank you guys for being here. We will let you know who won the $200 gift card tomorrow. If you have questions, if you have your own predictions, I would obviously love to hear those and have you share them with us. And mostly, I just hope that you guys have a beautiful, beautiful holiday season. I probably won't do the 26th because I think a lot of you are saying, probably not. So I'll probably take that day off as well. But I will be back. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have the best holiday season. I'm so, so, so grateful to you. It means so much to me guys that you guys come, you interact, that you chat with me. I really, really do not take that for granted for a minute. I'm so grateful for this community. It's been quite the year over here, as most of you know, and just having y'all here and this place to come to every week, and this support and this community and this conversation has meant more than I can say. So thank you guys. I love you. And I hope you have a beautiful holiday season. All right. Bye y'all.